With more on the details in these documents, and they are quite astounding, Joe.
Yeah, Elizabeth, what we have here are documents that lay out specific interviews with service members who were on the ground in Kabul when the Abbey Gate bombing went off. And what we've learned is that there was quite a bit of information that was known about the ISIS-K cell that pulled off this bombing before they did it, and requests to attack them before they struck, requests that went denied. That does seem to push back a bit on the Pentagon's narrative that this Abbey Gate bombing was totally inevitable and impossible to stop.
A tragic end to a 20-year war. In the middle of the desperate, chaotic scramble to escape, an ISIS-K suicide bomber killed 170 Afghan civilians and 13 American service members. Now, 2 years later, NewsNation has obtained Pentagon documents including sworn statements from military members who were there. The documents reveal the days before the attack, U.S. officials knew the exact location where the ISIS-K operatives were stationed. In this interview with a service member whose name is redacted, they say, quote, intelligence officers at the Kabul airport knew ISIS-K was staging in a hotel 2 to 3 kilometers west of the airport. Lieutenant General Chris Donahue, a top U.S. commander known as D2, reached out to the Taliban for help. Quote, D2 asked the Taliban to conduct an assault on the hotel, but they never did. That's because the U.S. had no choice, says Jerry Dunleavy, investigator on the House Foreign Affairs Committee and author of the book Kabul.
Why is it that we felt we needed to rely on the Taliban to carry out this strike rather than having American forces do it?
We were stuck with control over just an airport and nothing else, with the Taliban controlling everything. And so the U.S. was put in a position where the decision was made that we had to rely on the Taliban to provide security.
The documents go even further, revealing U.S. officials knew an attack was imminent, predicting nearly to the hour that it happened. Quote, intel reporting indicated ISIS-K was moving the bomber into place at 4:30 on 26 August. The predicted time just 1 hour and 7 minutes before the real attack happened. And service members describe at least one other request from intel officers to strike the ISIS-K cell before the Abbey Gate bombing, a request that was denied. The interview goes, quote, target packet and request to strike submitted only a few days prior to the bombing, and that, quote, the initial decision not to strike came 2 days before the attack on the Kabul airport. Other documents NewsNation obtained show American intel were tracking specific cars and routes they believed ISIS-K operatives were driving. So with all of this intel known, could American forces have stopped it and saved 13 American lives? The military says no. NewsNation sent the Pentagon a list of questions asking, among other things, why U.S. strike requests on ISIS-K cells were denied. Their response, in part, quote, U.S. military commanders on the ground in Afghanistan made the best decisions and provided their best military advice based off what was known at the time, and leaders took appropriate action in response to reported threat streams. From the investigation at the tactical level, the Abbey Gate attack was not preventable.
Officials at the Pentagon, Elizabeth, tell me that their response is based on a Central Command investigation they did. They say it was exhaustive, more than 100 interviews, and from that investigation, they concluded it was impossible to stop this Abbey Gate bombing without sacrificing the mission, which was, at the time, to get as many Americans and our Afghan visa-holding allies out as possible safely. I should note, Elizabeth, though, the Pentagon did not refute any of our reporting, nor did they refute any of the specifics we got from those interviews in those sworn statements that you just heard on air.
All right, Joe Khalil, thanks so much. For more on this, let's bring in Army veteran Alex Pleatzis. He served in Iraq and Afghanistan.